The room went quiet before I even reached the door. I heard it happen. The way a conversation drops off in the middle of a word. The way a laugh gets swallowed before it lands. I was still in the hallway, my hand not yet on the handle, and I already knew. The kind of knowing that sits in your chest before your brain catches up. I pushed the door open anyway. I should back up. My name is Joanna. I'm 32 years old. I've been a firefighter with the county for 9 years, and 2 years ago I received the Medal of Valor for pulling 3 kids out of a burning apartment complex on a Thursday morning in February when the temperature was 11 degrees and the water in our hoses kept threatening to freeze. My family didn't come to the ceremony. My mother said she had a prior commitment, my brother. I'll get to him, said he didn't know it was a big deal. My stepfather, who has never once in his life said the words, "I'm proud of you" to me, without immediately following them with a but, said that these things get handed out all the time and he didn't want to take a day off work for a photo op. I stood at that podium in my dress uniform, with my battalion chief pinning a medal to my chest, and I smiled for the camera and I thought, okay, this is okay, I have my crew. I have the people who matter. I told myself that for a long time. My brother got engaged in October. Her name is Simone, and she is perfectly nice in the way that people are perfectly nice when they're trying very hard and don't fully know how to relax yet. I don't dislike Simone. I want to be clear about that. What happened at the wedding was not Simone's fault, and I've made sure she knows that. The engagement party was at my mother's house. I drove 3 hours to get there. My stepfather shook my hand at the door the way he shakes the hands of people he's just met at a business dinner. Firm, brief, already looking past you. My mother hugged me and then held me at arm's length and said, "You look tired, Joe. Are you sleeping?" I had just come off a 48-hour shift. My brother, his name is Neil, and he is 2 years older than me and has worked in commercial real estate since he was 26 and considers himself, I think, a person of some importance, greeted me from across the kitchen with a wave. Not a hug, a wave. The kind you give someone you see every week, except I hadn't seen him in 7 months. Simone was genuinely warm. She found me within 10 minutes, pulled me aside, asked real questions about my job. She wanted to know what it was actually like. Not the version people tell at parties, but the real version. I liked her for that. Neil appeared at her elbow about 20 minutes into our conversation and steered her away to meet some of his work colleagues. He did it with his hand on the small of her back and a smile at me that meant nothing in particular. I stayed for 2 hours. I drove 3 hours home. The wedding was set for the following June. Outdoor ceremony, tented reception, a vineyard about 40 miles outside the city, 230 guests. Neil had been planning it for months with the kind of focus he'd never once applied to, say, showing up when our father died and someone needed to handle the arrangements, but that is a different story. I got my invitation in February. I RSVP'd yes within the week. I bought a dress, navy blue, knee-length, appropriate, and I made arrangements to have that weekend off, which required trading 2 shifts with colleagues who were doing me a favor. 6 weeks before the wedding, my mother called. I was in my kitchen making coffee. It was early, maybe 6:30. I remember the light coming through the window and the way my mug felt warm in my hand, and thinking that it was a nice morning before I answered. "Joe," she said, "I need to talk to you about something and I need you to really hear me." That phrase, "I need you to really hear me," is one my mother uses when she is about to say something she already knows is wrong. It's a preemptive defense. It's her way of asking me to not hold her accountable for what comes next. "Of course," I said. She told me that Neil and Simone were hoping to keep the wedding atmosphere cohesive, that they'd put a lot of thought into the look and feel of the day, that the vineyard had a very particular aesthetic, romantic, soft, timeless, and that Simone had specifically designed the visual to feel like a painting, everything warm-toned and flowing. I waited. I knew there was a landing coming. "They were hoping," my mother said, "that you might consider wearing the dress you bought instead of your uniform." I set down my coffee cup. I hadn't said anything about wearing my uniform. That thought hadn't been anywhere on my surface. I had a dress. I had bought a dress specifically for this wedding. No one had asked me about a uniform. What made them think I was planning to wear my uniform, I asked. A pause. "Well, you know, With your medal and everything. He thought you might. Did Neil ask you to call me? Joe. Mom. Did Neil ask you to call me? Another pause, longer this time. He and Simone both felt it might go over better coming from me. I looked at the window. The morning light was still there. It wasn't a nice morning anymore. I bought a dress, I said. I wasn't planning to wear my uniform, but now I'm thinking about it. She made a sound. Not quite a word, more like the beginning of alarm. I'm not saying I will, I said. I'm saying the fact that you called me 6 weeks out to preemptively ask me not to wear something I hadn't considered wearing is making me think about why my uniform would be a problem at my brother's wedding. It's not a problem, Joe. It's just the photos. Everything will be so coordinated. Your uniform is it's very official looking. I earned that uniform. I know you did, honey. I almost died earning that uniform. Twice. Silence. I'll think about it, I said. Tell Neil I said congratulations on the upcoming wedding. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that. I thought about the February morning 2 years ago when I went into that building for the 3rd time, and the ceiling came down behind me and I crawled through smoke so thick I couldn't see my own hand, and I found a 7-year-old girl hiding under a bed, and I carried her out and I didn't stop, shaking for 4 hours afterward. I thought about the other 2 kids, both under 10, both scared in a way that changes you if you let yourself fully absorb it. I thought about my crew getting the last one out with 30 seconds to spare before the structure went. I thought about the ceremony, the empty seats where my family should have been. I thought about the dress hanging in my closet, navy blue, knee-length, perfectly appropriate. I thought about my dress uniform, too. The one I'd pressed and hung with care after the ceremony. The one with the medal pinned where it belonged. I called my best friend, another firefighter named Tess, who has known me since our academy days and has approximately 0 patience for what she calls people who shrink you. Wear the uniform, she said, before I had fully finished explaining. I bought a dress. Wear the uniform. It might cause a scene. Joe. Her voice was steady. You went into a burning building 3 times in one morning. You can handle a scene at a vineyard. I didn't decide right away. I want to be honest about that, because I think people sometimes tell these stories like the brave choice was instant and easy, and it wasn't. I went back and forth for 4 weeks. I tried on the dress 12 times. I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought about soft and warm-toned and cohesive, and I thought about what it means to be asked to make yourself smaller for someone else's photograph. I thought about my father. He was a firefighter too, 23 years on the job. Captain when he retired, gone at 61 from a heart condition that the department's own health studies linked directly to smoke inhalation over a career. He was the one who first told me that the uniform means something, not just as clothing, as a record, as proof of what you chose and what it cost you. The day you put it on, he told me once, when I was maybe 19 and asking him about his career, you're saying, I will go toward the thing everyone else is running from. You wear that uniform, you're saying it out loud without words. He died 14 months before my Medal of Valor ceremony. He never knew I got it. I decided to wear the uniform the night before the wedding. I took it out of the garment bag and I pressed it one more time even though it didn't need it, and I pinned the medal where it belonged, and I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time and I said, out loud, to nobody, this is what I earned. The vineyard was beautiful. I'll give Neil and Simone that. They had impeccable taste. White tent, string lights, pale flowers everywhere, the kind of golden late afternoon light that makes everything look like it should be framed, women in flowy dresses, men in linen suits. Exactly the painting Simone had envisioned. I pulled up in my car and sat for a moment before getting out. I could see guests already arriving, moving across the gravel lot toward the venue entrance, everyone soft and warm-toned and flowing. I looked at myself in the rear-view mirror. Navy dress uniform, Medal of Valor on my chest. Hair up, sharp and clean. I thought, okay. I got out of the car. I heard the first murmur before I reached the entrance. Someone noticing, saying something low to the person beside them. Not unkind, just noticing. I kept walking. I found the seating coordinator at the entrance, gave my name, was directed to my table, family table, to my credit. Neil hadn't moved me, and I made my way through the reception area to find my seat and leave my things before the ceremony. That was when I saw my mother. She saw me the same moment I saw her. Her face did several things in very quick succession. Surprise, something like fear, something like admiration that she suppressed immediately, and then the careful arrangement of a neutral expression. "Joe?" she said. "Hi, Mom." She looked at the uniform. She looked at the medal. She opened her mouth, and I said, gently but clearly, "Don't." She closed her mouth. My stepfather was 2 steps behind her. He looked at me the way he always looks at me, assessing, calculating, and then he looked at the medal, and something shifted in his face that I couldn't quite name. He didn't say anything. He nodded, once, like he was acknowledging something, and moved past. Neil found me 20 minutes before the ceremony. I was standing near the edge of the tent, holding a glass of water, watching the vineyard rows stretch out toward the hills. "Joe." His voice was tight. I turned. He looked good. His suit was nice. He'd gotten a haircut. He had the look of a man who was supposed to be happy today and was not happy right now. "You wore it," he said. "I did." "I thought Mom called me," I said. "I heard her." I thought about it. I decided. "This is my wedding." "It is." I looked at him steadily. "And I'm your sister, and I'm a firefighter, and 2 years ago I received the Medal of Valor, and none of you came to that ceremony. I drove 3 hours to your engagement party. I traded shifts to be here. I bought a dress for today, Neil." I paused. "And then someone called me 6 weeks ago to ask me to hide the thing I'm most proud of in my life, and I decided I wasn't going to do that." He looked at me. I could see him working through something. "The photos," he started, "will show that your sister was there," I said. "In the uniform she earned." He didn't say anything else. He walked away, and I turned back to the vineyard, and I breathed. The ceremony was lovely, genuinely. Simone was radiant in a way that no one could have predicted, even from beautiful engagement photos. There's something that happens to people when they're standing in front of someone they love, in front of everyone they know, and she had that thing in full. Neil cried a little, which surprised me. I was glad. I hadn't seen him cry since we were kids, and I thought maybe he still had it in him. I cried too, a little, behind my sunglasses. Not for the reasons you might think. Not from happiness exactly, though I was happy for them. I cried because I love my brother even though he makes it hard. I always have. The reception was where it happened. We'd been seated for maybe 20 minutes, cocktail hour transitioning to dinner, the band starting to find its footing, when I heard it. A chair. The specific sound of a chair being pushed back deliberately, with weight and intention, the way someone stands up when they mean to stand up. I looked up. An older man at a table across the room was on his feet. Late 60s, maybe early 70s. Silver-haired, good posture in the particular way of someone trained to it. He was looking directly at me, and then he put his hand over his heart. I didn't understand at first. Then the woman next to him stood. She was younger, maybe 50, with the same posture. She put her hand over her heart too, then the man beside her, and then another person at a table near the window, and another near the bar, and then 2 more at the table by the string quartet. 8 people. 10. I stopped counting. They were all standing, all looking at me, all with their hands over their hearts, or standing at attention, the way veterans stand. No one said anything. The band stopped playing. The entire room was looking now, 200 people trying to understand what they were seeing. I heard someone near me ask someone else a quiet question. I heard the answer come back even quieter. Medal of Valor. "She's a firefighter. She pulled 3 kids out of a building. I don't know who said it. I don't know how they knew. Maybe one of them recognized the medal. Maybe word had moved through the room in ways I wasn't tracking. I was trying very hard not to cry. My battalion chief, who I had not known, was at this wedding. Simone's uncle, I would learn later, a retired firefighter himself, stood up from a table near the back and started to applaud. Just him at first, then his table, then the tables around him. The whole room followed. I stood there in my dress uniform in the middle of my brother's wedding reception while 200 people applauded, and I looked at my hands, and I thought about a 7-year-old girl under a bed, and I thought about my father, and the smoke, and the 30 seconds, and I thought, this is what I earned. My stepfather didn't speak for a long time after that. He sat at the family table with an expression I had never seen on him in 20 years, and he looked at me differently for the rest of the night. Not warmly exactly. He isn't a warm man, but with something that looked almost like recalibration. My mother found me near the end of the evening, after dinner, after dancing had started and the room had loosened into celebration. She didn't say anything for a moment. We stood next to each other looking at the dance floor. Then she said, "I'm sorry I called you." I looked at her. "I should have told Neil to call you himself," she said. "Or told him there was nothing to call about." She paused. "You looked. When they all stood up. You looked the way you looked when you were 9 years old. And you made the all-county swim team and you came running in from the backyard to tell your father. That big." She pressed her lips together. "I'm sorry I forgot that was in you. I didn't have words right away." I took her hand and held it for a moment, and she let me. Neil found me just before I left for the night. He was looser by then, a little wine-warmed, Simone glowing at his side. She reached out and touched my arm first. "I'm glad you wore it," she said, low, just to me. Then she was pulled away by another guest, and it was just Neil and me in the middle of a thinning crowd. He looked at me for a moment. "I didn't know," he said finally. "About what you did, the 3 kids." He shook his head slightly. "Mom told me there was a ceremony, but I thought—" He stopped. I didn't look it up. I should have looked it up. "Yeah," I said. "I'm sorry, Joe. I looked at my brother. I thought about all the years of being the one who handled things while he charmed his way through them. All the ways a family can make you feel like your hardest-earned things are the least important ones. I thought about the 7-year-old girl, who is 9 now, who sent me a drawing for Christmas last year. A firefighter in a truck labeled in her careful second-grade handwriting. The lady who saved me. "I know," I said. I hugged him. He hugged me back, harder than I expected. I drove home that night with all the windows down even though it was cold. I had the radio on low. The medal was still pinned to my uniform and I kept catching it in the corner of my eye, catching light from the passing street lamps. And I thought about my father and what he told me about what the uniform means. You wear that uniform, you're saying it out loud without words. I'm not someone who needs a room full of people to stand up for me. I know that about myself. I do this work because I believe in it, not because I need applause, and the 3 kids I pulled out of that building would have deserved to be pulled out whether anyone ever knew about it or not. But there is something, I want to be careful to say this right, there is something about being seen that matters. Not as performance, not as vanity, but the way it matters when you have carried something heavy for a long time, in a space where no one seems to notice the weight. When a room full of strangers stands up and says, "We see what you carry and we know what it cost you," that matters. It fills something. I think a lot of people in my line of work carry things in silence for a long time. Firefighters, cops, medics, soldiers. People who run toward whatever everyone else is running from. We learn pretty early that the people we love don't always know what to do with what we do. It's not their fault. It's a distance that builds slowly between 2 kinds of life, and sometimes it takes a room going quiet to remind the people who love you that the distance is there and that it cost you something. I don't think Neil is a bad person. I don't think my mother is. I think they got comfortable in the version of me that fit into their picture. The little sister, the daughter, the one who showed up and handled things and could be counted on to go quietly to her seat. I let them have that version for a long time. I wore a dress to a lot of events where I could have worn what I earned. Not anymore. I pulled up to my house around midnight, sat in the driveway for a minute. The neighborhood was quiet and dark, and the air smelled like cut grass and the very beginning of summer. I touched the medal once with one finger, the way I do sometimes when I need to remind myself what's real. Then I went inside. Service is never something to be hidden. Not at a dinner table, not in a photograph. Not at a wedding where 200 people might suddenly learn what it means to stand up for what someone else chose to carry. You wear what you earned, every time. I've thought a lot about what actually happened that night. Not the applause, not the veterans standing, not even Neil's face when he finally said sorry. I've thought about the years before it, the long, quiet accumulation of moments where I made myself smaller because it seemed easier than the alternative. That's the part nobody talks about. The before, how you get to a place where someone can call you 6 weeks before a family event and ask you to hide the most important thing you've ever earned, and your first instinct isn't anger. It's consideration. It's maybe they have a point. Maybe I'm being difficult. I had trained myself over years to translate my own worth into whatever unit of measurement was most convenient for the room I was standing in. Around my stepfather, I was practical and useful. Around Neil, I was the responsible one, the backup plan, the person who handled things quietly. Around my mother, I was the child who needed less because she seemed to need less. And I let all of that happen because I thought that was what love required. That you make yourself fit. What I understand now is that the fitting was costing me something. Every time I shrunk, I was teaching the people around me that shrinking was acceptable. Every time I drove 3 hours and waved off the empty seats at a ceremony that should have mattered to them, I was confirming that my life could be a footnote in theirs. Actions compound. The things we accept quietly become the things people believe we're okay with. Wearing the uniform to that wedding wasn't a statement. I want to be clear about that. I didn't put it on to make a point, or win an argument, or force a reckoning. I put it on because I looked at myself in the mirror the night before and I thought, this is true. This is who I am. And I am done pretending otherwise to make a photograph look more cohesive. The consequences that followed. Neil's apology, my mother's honesty about what she'd forgotten, my stepfather's recalibration. Those weren't things I engineered. They were things that happened when I finally stopped engineering the opposite. When you stop carefully managing other people's comfort at the expense of your own truth, the people who are capable of growth tend to grow. Not always. Not everyone. But some do. Tess told me once, back when we were still in the academy and everything felt enormous and uncertain, that the hardest part of this job isn't the fire. It's learning to trust yourself enough to go toward the thing when every instinct in every other person says run. She meant it about the work. I think about it now in a broader way. Going toward the thing. Wearing what you earned. Saying, without apology, this is what I chose and this is what it cost me, and I will not fold it away so you can feel more comfortable. My father knew this. He wore his uniform like it was part of his body, like it was biographical fact. He never performed it, never used it as a weapon, just carried it as the honest record of who he was and what he'd spent his years doing. I think about him every time I put mine on. I think about what he understood that took me much longer to learn. You cannot earn respect. You keep hiding. You cannot ask people to understand a life you keep translating into softer language. At some point, you have to let the thing you are speak for itself. In the room, in the light, where people can either rise to meet it or reveal that they cannot. Most people, I've found, will rise.